How's it going, everybody? My name's Carpo. I'd like to talk for a moment about free-range parenting, as it's called by some, which I believe that term was actually coined by one lady who wrote a book, if I'm not mistaken. And some people may have the opposite, helicopter parenting, which is basically watching every single thing your kids do. And I'd like to think that I'm an expert at parenting because I have kids. So, how much more of an expert can you become, right? You can only observe so many kids, so it doesn't matter if you have 2 or 5, but honestly, if you have 1, it's much different than having multiple kids. And I raised one kid till he was 25 with my wife, and he's almost 25 now. And there were some difficult times, but it generally was pretty easy to deal with one kid compared to more. I grew up with a brother that was 3 years younger, but we have 3 kids at the exact same spread as I was with my brother now, and they're 6 and 9, almost 7 and 10. And let me just say, it's a big challenge. I work from home and I take care of my kids from home. The first few years I was doing carpentry, so at least I could get out of the house for a while. But once my back got screwed up, I was kind of laid out, and so after that I eventually just became, I want to be able to raise my kids and not let a nanny or a babysitter do so. But let me tell you, it's a huge challenge, much more challenging than going to work each day. So let me get to the point of this video. I, as a parent, have to make decisions to what I will let my kids do. And when I was a kid, when I was my son's age, at 9 years old, I remember we moved into a new house and I wanted to go back and see my old house. So I rode all the way back. I believe I was actually about 10 or maybe 11. I got on my bicycle and rode down Tualatin Valley Highway, which was the road that led back to Tigard, where I wanted to go, or Beaverton, I believe. I was going from Hillsboro to Beaverton, and that means nothing if you don't live out here. But from a kid, it was several miles, and I rode down some pretty busy roads to look at my old apartment, the one that we had got kicked out of because some neighbors had complained because we kids had too much fucking fun in the complex. It was just ridiculous. They complained because we played outside. But anyhow, the point was that we did play outside. We got into all kinds of interesting situations, but we didn't generally get in trouble too bad until we got older. But as I moved out of there, moved into a new location, I still was, my parents let me roam. They let me hang out. And it's like most kids of my generation say, Gen X and before said, they just send you out and say, go play. And you'd come back when it was dark, right? And in today's world, you're afraid that CSD is going to show up at your fucking door if you do that. Now, I am going to quote from a specific case of something that happened like that, and the reason why I'm talking about this now. Now, kids started showing up at my door a couple weeks ago. They met my kids on the street somewhere around here. They're from a street up. I live on a 1st Street and they live on 2nd Street. Actually, one of the kids has the same address as us, the same house number, just a different street up. And, they're kids. I'm not going to say they're good kids or bad kids. I don't really know them that well, but they seem, decent enough. They want to have fun. They want to play. And my youngest, who is 6, he wants to go out and play with them. And I'm like, okay, go ahead, and naturally they've come to his house, and the next day some other kids showed up, totally different kids. So anyhow, there's like 4 or 5 different kids that kind of rotate down here. So today he asks, can I go up there to his house? What am I supposed to say as a parent? Naturally you want to meet their parents before you let your kids, hang out for any length of time at someone's house, but as long as he's playing outside and having fun with his friends, so be it. So yeah, of course I let him go up there. But I had it in the back of my mind this case of a kid about his age with his older brother who were walking to a park and got picked up by the police, taken to the station, and their parents, CSD was called on the parents because they supposedly had let their kids wander off and they should have been supervised. Now, I believe the guy, they were both, renowned people. One was a lawyer, one was a teacher, or something like that. In other words, they had some status in the community, and they weren't bad parents, was the point. They were responsible, they knew what they were doing. They just wanted their kids to go out and explore the world. and the park was just a few blocks away. Now, this kind of shit happens all the time, and you're afraid to even let your kid play out there. And a whole panic has swept over society about how the kids are in danger, of course, because there's always these predators lurking around every corner. Now look, I get it. There are predators out there, sure, but they're not the overwhelming majority. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't be aware, and you should damn well make your kids aware, sure, but if you trap your kids and don't let them go out and explore the world on their own, it's not a matter of protecting them. It's a matter of what you're doing is not trusting them with their own ability to explore the world. And by doing that, it holds kids back from that exploration, that stepping on a rusty nail that goes all the way through your foot, where you have to call the hospital, or, ending up in the back of a police car because you're out past curfew, these kinds of things. They're kinds of rites of passage. And in today's world, that's about all we have. And unfortunately, in so many parts of society, it's like a zero tolerance policy for males going out and, getting in trouble. It's always like, oh, look at them, they're troublemakers. And you know what? I was a troublemaker. I mean, I don't want to get into the kind of bullshit that we pulled, but it wasn't to harm anyone, ever. And it was never to wrong anyone or steal from them. I did have friends who did shit like that, though, and there was some unbelievably weird shit that happened. People looting safes with cocaine and cash and weed and all these weird people getting jacked, and it was an interesting time, but fortunately I avoided most of that. But it was because I was smart enough to stay away from it, is the point. And I believe that my exploration of the world when I was young gave me enough street smarts to when I got older, I didn't get myself into trouble the way a lot of other people did. To where I had met so many people and been in situations where you could hide with your friend in the corner and say fucking shit all day long, and your parents couldn't do anything about it because they weren't there. The little things you do as a kid, which are totally silly in retrospect, but you have these key moments in your life, and experiences are really all we have. And one thing I've learned is staying in one place too long just builds cabin fever, and if your kids are always at home and they're not traveling around and exploring, they're missing out on a lot of interesting things. Like when I found a bunch of firecrackers in the crawl space underneath the apartments, and the time I lit one and numbed my fingers for a couple hours in my garage, that kind of stuff. But actually, that was when I was like 7 or 8. I can't believe the things I did, but stupidity is the way we learn. As humans, we just can't be taught. We have to experience. You tell your kid not to do something a million times and they're going to do it anyway. So the best we can do, and my main point, is to raise our children to respect us, raise them to come and check in, actually do the things we ask. And it's a lot harder than it sounds. Of course, I'm not saying my kids are obedient. Yes, Father. Hell no. They are punks. I mean, trying to get them to go to sleep. In fact, I can hear my son right now. That was his voice. It's very distinct, your own kid's voice. So at least I know he's there, right? He's a very loud kid. He likes to make sure he's heard, and he screams. But he'll grow out of that. All kids, hopefully, if they're taught properly, will grow out of some of their bullshit when they're young. But if they're not out there meeting people one-on-one without parental supervision, if they're not meeting kids face-to-face without us over their shoulder, then they're not going to be able to remedy and deal with these situations. There are so many soccer moms and helicopter parents out there who really want to solve every problem for their kids. And after we keep them away from fights and bullies, we're going to make sure that we, edit his Twitter for him to only give him positive reviews and positive comments, or, that's of course not, that's an extreme joke, but that kind of thing is actually, there are children out there who do get their Twitter feed edited down to the positive comments. One of them actually runs this country, or at least sits in the Oval Office. It's pretty interesting, but that's a completely different story altogether. There are some symptoms of, or behaviors we see in children that we also see in adults. And it often comes down to ego and the way we're afraid that our friends see us a certain way, and we can't cope with bad news or bad reviews. We can't have anybody say anything bad to us. And when you're a kid that way and your parents stand up for you, then it's hard because the kid never learns to stand up for themselves. It's like when I was a kid and I got fucked with a lot in school. I got picked on by bullies a lot. But you know what? It made me realize I don't have to fight them. I don't have to even deal with them at all. I can just be invisible to them completely. And I found a way to do that. And it's because I let my ego go. I didn't have to well, fuck you, why are you picking on me? It's like, if you can talk people out of shit, there was once I had to fight when I was in junior high, but the dude left me alone after that, and it's one of those things. It's like, when you're a kid, you have to be able to go through these fights, arguments, travels, fall down, hurt yourself, and then when you become an adult, you can look back with them, or at them, with kind of a reverence, and like, wow, I'm glad I did that. I don't regret a damn thing I did as a kid. I mean, in fact, I've never met anyone who says, God, I wish my parents had kept me at home. So maybe we should think about that as parents, as a society. That's my opinion. Peace out. Talk to y'all later.